Hi and welcome everybody. My name is Sue Chang and I am the director of the food program at the Center for Environmental Health. Today we will be talking about the important role that frontline workers play in K-12 schools and food service operations and how to overcome some of the staffing challenges that come up as schools aim to bring back reusables across the country. Center for Environmental Health, or CEH, is a national nonprofit organization that works to remove toxic chemicals from the lived environment and has a mission to protect people from those chemicals. So why are we hosting a talk on labor and reusables in K-12 schools? Well, that is because some of the single-use foodware used at many schools contain toxic chemicals, and switching away from these harmful disposables will require changes in lunch labor at K-12 schools. So here are some examples of two common types of single-use foodware that you might find in schools. Unfortunately, these products are made with and still contain harmful ingredients. If you look at expanded polystyrene foam on the top, often referred to as styrofoam, the main building block chemical is styrene, which is associated with a host of health problems, including cancer, reduced fertility, and birth defects. We also know that for 1/3 of the people who were sampled in a study, polystyrene microplastics was detected in their blood. And while it's good news that polystyrene foam is starting to get phased out of more places, a common single-use replacement for it, which you likely have come across, has also turned out to be of concern. Many of these molded fiber products, which is on the bottom, products that are made out of sugarcane, wheat straw, bagasse, or a blend of plant fibers, but not all of them, contain a class of chemicals called per- and polyfluoroalkyl substances, or PFAS, also known as forever chemicals. These chemicals are associated with ADHD, delayed puberty, metabolic disorders, many cancers, and also decreased effectiveness of vaccines. In both of these cases, styrene and PFAS have been shown to migrate out of the foodware and get into the food. And the problem is not just with these two products. Scientists have found that many single-use foodware products contain hazardous chemicals that have been linked to a variety of health complications. If our goal is serving healthy meals at school, we also need to think about what that food is served on as well. CH has played a key role in getting manufacturers to eliminate PFAS from the food serviceware market. However, part of the problem is that we don't know what companies are using instead to provide the grease and water resistance function that PFAS was serving. And in general, we don't have any way of getting or verifying the accuracy of any of that information that we get from companies anyway. This is why we created a way for purchasers to identify food serviceware with preferable chemistry. CEH has worked with another national nonprofit organization, Clean Production Action, to develop a certification for single-use foodware called Green Screen Certified that ensures that products do not contain over 10,000 different chemicals of concern, provides a roadmap for manufacturers to move towards safer chemistry. If you are still needing to use disposable foodware in your kitchen, you should ask your supplier for Green Screen certified food serviceware. So if we're going to make a huge change to the school's foodware, we think it's best to make a change that gets at the most upstream solution, namely reusable foodware in schools. Reusables are COVID safe, have options that are made from relatively inert materials, are resilient to supply chain disruptions, and most importantly, teaches youth good habits. We should not be giving students foodware items that they'll use anywhere from 20 minutes to 20 seconds and then throw away, never to think about again. We can do better than this. Schools have used reusables in the past, and we want to encourage schools to move back to the reusables. CH has a toolkit with guidance and resources on how to make that switch on our website. And there's a link at the bottom of the slide. Another great resource we wanted to flag is we recognize there can be a number of barriers to bringing reusables into schools. One of the barriers is actually purchasing the items. We have a resource to help remove that barrier. Plastic Free Restaurants is an organization that will buy school reusable items to replace plastic or PFAS containing disposables. They will pay for up to $5 per item, and this includes purchasing stainless steel items. They recently assisted Berkeley Unified School District in California with purchasing over $10,000 worth of stainless steel cups, bowls, utensils, and trays to replace their disposable items. If you want to just buy stainless steel sporks and wash them in your 3-sink system, they will help you buy those sporks and you'll never have to worry about those kits again. Another barrier is washing the reusables. And this is why CEH has been gaining expertise in dish machines and providing technical assistance to purchasers around them. Dish machines can be a cost-saving investment. They can bring schools cost savings around not having to purchase, manage, store, and dispose of mountains of single-use foodware. But you'll still need someone to wash and manage those dishes. And so CEH has a webinar recording up on our website if you want to learn more about that topic as well. So to unpack the many issues we encounter around K-12 schools and nutrition and food labor, we have enlisted some amazing speakers who will present some new ideas to you today. Sally Spiro of Lunch Assist will explain the history of school lunch labor and how we got into our current situation. Angela Gomez will talk about what is currently happening in the K-12 school kitchen and why nutrition staff need to be the first part of the conversation about sustainability at schools. And lastly, we will have Irene Vargas, the nutrition director at Alisal Union School District, talk about how she has made reusables work in her district and how she has pushed for a greener situation in her school district. Afterward, we will have 15 minutes of Q&A. So please type any questions you have into the Q&A box at any time, and we will try to address as many questions as we can after we hear all the speakers. This webinar is being recorded, and we will share out the slides and the video in a follow-up email. So sit back and relax and enjoy, and I will turn it over to Sally.
Hi, good morning, everybody. I'm really honored to be here today to talk about this topic. And today I'm sort of acting as your historian. So just so you know a little bit about me, I've been in school food service for over 35 years. And I've done everything in the kitchen. I've been a director for many decades. And so I'm very familiar with what's going on in the schools and what realistic options and problems are out there. So right now I'm working as a senior advisor at Lunch Assist and have really enjoyed my work with this important group. So we're going to start way back in 1946, even older than me. But we had won the Second World War in 1945, and there were some issues that were left over from that war that were affecting the thinking at that time. The first thing is when they had gone to draft young men in World War II, they had to not allow them to serve in the army because they were so poorly nourished as children. They had bad teeth, they had poor bones, they had anemia and other diseases that were related to bad nourishment as children. Another thing that was going on was that farmers had geared up food production to support the armies and also countries that had had their agriculture disrupted because of the war. So the war ended and the farmers were making too much food. So when you have too much of anything, the price collapses, and farmers were doing things like, thinning their herds and just burying them. They were pouring milk down drains and things like that. So we had too much food, and we had children who we needed to nourish better going into the future. So they came up with the idea of the National School Lunch Act. So we had children, we had food, we had schools, we were still missing one important thing, namely, who was going to fix the meals. Now, as we all know, this has turned out to be primarily women, but let's look at what women's life was like in 1946. The first thing is that only 26% of white women and 8% of women of color had a high school education. So the women were not very well educated. They had not acquired a trade or a skill that was marketable. And they didn't have things like community colleges or night schools or things like that. Women married young and they had children because that's what happens when you get married. And they were expected to focus on their families first. So even a phrase like working mother was kind of something that was looked down on. Another thing that was going on was that a lot of these women had worked during World War II in factories, but they had lost those jobs. They were fired when World War II ended to make way for the men. And it was perfectly legal to fire a person because they were the wrong sex. It was also perfectly legal in those days to pay women less than men for the same job. In the schools it wasn't until 1961 that women teachers were paid the same as men teachers. So John, who teaches English in room 1, makes $10,000, and Sally, who teaches English in room 2, is paid $8,000, and that was perfectly legal to do. So women could be paid a low wage. There were many occupations that were closed to women. And we have residues of that even today. If you look at, say, the construction business, where you also do not have to have a large amount of education. It's learned on the job and through apprenticeships programs. But those occupations were closed to women, even though they would have been capable of doing them. And finally, the thought was that the husband in the family should earn the main income. So women's work was considered to be sort of an extra in the family, that maybe it would pay for a vacation or some extras or for Christmas or things like that. So that's kind of the world that this was being developed in. So as they set the meal reimbursements and got ready to come up with the rates that they were going to pay for meals, they made an assumption that there would be a large pool of low-wage workers available. And there was. All those women were available to do low-wage work. They also assumed that the women would not need any benefits because their husbands would be providing health insurance, care for old age, and things like that. And those things have not changed. The structure of payments is based on the assumption that we will have a large portion of low-wage workers who are not paid benefits, and that has not changed since the beginning of the National School Lunch Program. There have only been cost of living adjustments all the way going back to 1946, with just a couple of exceptions, and I'm going to talk about those. So if you don't take anything else away, remember that the school food service directors have to meet their budget. They are expected to meet, they're expected to live within their means, and their means assume that they're not going to be paying much in the way of workers. So actually in the 1980s and the Reagan era, the school lunch rates were cut. And that's when you saw a big growth in a la carte sales, so extras and things like that, because people had to keep making their budget, so they brought in more money. Then in 2010, we had the Healthy Hunger-Free Kids Act passed, and USDA's own study said that it would cost 29 cents per meal to implement the Healthy Hunger-Free Kids Act, and Congress gave us 6 cents. So there was a further gap in our funding availability. So one of the things that people began to do was use convenience foods to get their labor costs down. And that would be, you know, such as giving up making chicken and noodles from scratch and using a frozen burrito. You could hire less skilled people. Another thing that was happening was the use of disposals. So if you were to calculate how much it was going to cost you to pay for somebody to wash the dishes and see how much it was going to cost if you just bought disposables and threw them away, And a lot of times that came out to make financial advantage for the people who were looking for money. However, that is our past. Can our future be different from that? Well, we have seen some interesting things happen. First of all, disposables are now not perceived by the parents and the students as being a good solution in the schools for some of the reasons that were mentioned previously. Also, in some places, they're just being banned outright, or they have become so costly. And another thing, even though the payment structure hasn't permanently changed, in the last 2 years, USDA has put extra money in the meal reimbursements separate from the cost of living adjustments, because they're finally seeing that the women of 1946 are not the women of 2022, that things are going to be better if we can put more money into school food service. And I'm just going to close by saying, in school food service, we know what to do. We know the solutions. We're not dealing with a difficult problem like, finding a way out of homelessness. We know what to do. We just have to want to do it. And so far, we haven't wanted to do it as much as we should. So I'm going to turn it over now to Angela.
Thank you so much, Sally, for that quick school nutrition history lesson. For those of you who are not in school nutrition, Sally is an absolute legend, and I'm glad she approves of my earrings today. I dressed to impress her. Good morning, everyone. I am so happy to be here. Again, my name is Angela Gomez, and my pronouns are she, her, and I'm coming to you from Phoenix, Arizona. So I'm a registered dietitian, a school nutrition specialist, and a school nutrition coordinator with Lunch Assist. And today I want to zoom in a little bit more and explore the sustainability of the cafeteria worker. And just to give you a quick background on my school nutrition journey, I fell in love with school nutrition during my dietetic internship. And shortly after passing my exam in 2017, I started working as a high school food and nutrition coordinator for one of the top 5 largest school districts in Arizona. Then in 2020, right before the pandemic shutdowns, I worked as a nutritionist at a much smaller school district in Levine, Arizona, that served K-8 students. And then just recently, I started working at Lunch Assist as a school nutrition coordinator. And for those of you who are unfamiliar with Lunch Assist is a woman-led organization with a team of former school nutrition directors, state agency staff, and registered dietitians. We offer professional development training in English and Spanish. We offer one-on-one consulting, and we offer admin review support for school nutrition professionals. Okay, so before we dive deeper, let's take a poll. So today's poll question is, what is the nation's second largest food and nutrition assistance program? Is it A, the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, SNAP, formerly known as food stamps? Is it WIC, the Special Supplemental Nutrition Program for Women, Infants, and Children? Is it the Senior Farmers Market Nutrition Program? Is it D, National School Lunch Program? Or is it E, A, N, D? I'll give you a few seconds as you vote here. All right, those results should be popping up soon. I'm curious to see what you all chose. Okay, so 41% of you selected National School Lunch Program, D, which is correct. So the National School Lunch Program is only second to SNAP in food assistance programs in this country. And this is one of my favorite party tricks. I really like to highlight this statistic for people because I think it puts into perspective how big the school lunch program actually is. 95% of schools across the nation participate in the school lunch program, which means a lot of youth in our country benefit from this program. And a lot of cafeteria workers are out there working hard to make sure that this program stays in operation. Okay, so I wanted to share this disclaimer with you that I'm talking about a huge complex topic in a very short amount of time. And there's so much more that can be and should be said. So just think of this as a bite-sized introduction, like this adorable pumpkin pie here. All right, so I was invited here today because of a short article I wrote for Serve Digizine back in April titled The Sustainability Conversation We Are Not Having. And today, I invite you to be open to having this conversation that I believe is long overdue and some of what Sally touched on. So take a second and think about common sustainability concerns specific to school cafeterias. It's disposables, plastic trays, microplastics, food waste, prepackaged foods, and purchasing non-local foods. Now, I know not all the concerns are listed here. So what did I miss? Feel free to drop in the chat some of your common sustainability concerns that you see in school cafeterias. Now, the examples in this slide all have one thing in common, and that is they all pretty much fall under the environmental sustainability pillar. This pillar focuses on things like water quality, air quality, and reduction of environmental stressors like greenhouse gas emissions, for instance. This pillar gets a lot of love and attention in conversations around sustainability. The second pillar that I see get a lot of attention is the economic sustainability pillar. This pillar focuses on things like job creation, profitability, and the pillar that I really want to focus on today is a pillar I would love to see prioritized when we talk about school cafeterias and sustainability. That is the third pillar, social sustainability. This includes things such as environmental justice, human health, resource security, and education. All those fall under this pillar. Do you know what else falls under this pillar? Things like employee retention. And for those of you who have worked in school nutrition, you know that employee retention and staffing shortages are a very real thing that has only been exacerbated by effects and the responses to the COVID pandemic. Now, really, this pillar is really where it's at for me here. And unfortunately, I don't see it being given the attention it deserves, especially when we're talking about school cafeterias and sustainability. So here's the hard truth, that many of the things we see and know to be harmful to the environment and to humans have been helpful temporary solutions to school nutrition programs and professionals facing serious issues and minimal support. So you might be wondering how. I'll share some common examples. So in school nutrition, you'll often hear us say, just feed the kids. And that's just to emphasize at the end of the day, after all the things that could have went wrong and did go wrong, what really matters most is that we fed the kids. So when we're short-staffed and are having trouble filling open positions, sometimes the best option is to buy the disposables so that the extra set of hands can be serving meals to students instead of washing dishes. Or take, for instance, a real scenario that I know of. A school board in the past voted to remove large kitchen equipment that would have supported more scratch cooking, which could have potentially reduced the amount of individually wrapped food items that program had to purchase. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that we shouldn't strive for more sustainable practices in school cafeterias. I'm all for them. And the truth is, a lot of other school nutrition professionals also want to see these practices in their cafeterias. What I am saying is that cafeteria workers and school meal programs are doing the best they can with what they have. And sometimes what we have is not a whole lot. So here's where prioritizing the sustainability of the cafeteria worker can serve as a foundation and solution to other sustainable strategies. If we appreciate cafeteria workers for the hard work that they do and acknowledge that they are human and have basic human needs that need to be met, then the sustainable practices we implement in school cafeterias will actually be sustainable. So I'm talking if we prioritize giving full-time hours, livable wages, and benefits to cafeteria workers, then they might not have to have multiple jobs to make ends meet, which is pretty common. We might even attract more people to come and work in school nutrition and start to work on staffing shortages. And think about it, with more hours, staff will have more time and energy to wash reusables, to do more scratch cooking, and to carry out the sustainable strategies we all want to see in school cafeterias. All right, you heard me mention livable wages. So let's talk about the reality of cafeteria workers today real quick. In 2020, the School Nutrition Association conducted a compensation report where they received 1,042 responses from that amount of districts. And the two staffing challenges that they had a significant and somewhat of a significant challenge too was finding and hiring non-management level staff. So that would be cafeteria staff generally, not including managers or supervisors on site, and then retaining non-management level staff. Then in 2021, the School Nutrition Association conducted a supply chain survey report, and 1,212 school districts responded to that. And in the top 5 significant challenges that were listed, 70.7% survey respondents listed staffing shortages as a significant challenge. So I'm curious, I encourage you to share it in the chat box if you're able to. What are some of the ways you've been able to increase hours and wages for staff? I know people are out there and they have solutions, they're doing stuff. So I always think it's great to share those. So if you can, use the chat, share them. If not, maybe share those out on social media or start talking about them with more people. Okay. So median starting wages. This is based off the 2020 compensation report I mentioned. So the lowest starting wage for was the full-time dishwasher at $10.15 an hour. And second to that was the full-time cashier at $10.70 an hour, or 70 cents rather an hour. The $70 an hour would be nice. So what this looks like is, say, if a cafeteria staff was a single parent and they were a household of 2 that had 1 child, they would actually be eligible to receive free meals on an annual income such as this. Now, the higher ends of the wage was the part-time assistant manager starting out at $15 an hour. And then in second place, a part-time manager at $14.95 an hour. And a lot of you can already assume that the part-time is probably a little bit higher to make up for the benefits that they likely do not receive. So the top 3 barriers that were listed as why the program hasn't raised salaries or offered bonuses in the 2021 supply chain survey report was raises and bonuses weren't approved by district admin. There was insufficient funds available to raise salaries or provide benefits, and salary raises contingent on union contract renegotiation. And this is something that Sally and Irene might be able to speak more to in regards to that. So since we can't share in the chat box, I just want you to kind of think of what are some of the sustainability focused strategies that you would like to see in schools in your community. And that might lead you to wonder how you can support school nutrition professionals and sustainability at the same time. So I want to share a few quick ways that you can get involved. So districts have to have a local school wellness policy if they participate in the school breakfast program and or the national school lunch program. And the local school wellness policy is a written document that describes districts' efforts to establish a school environment that promotes students' health, well-being, and ability to learn. And as I mentioned, this is required for all those programs that are operating. So the great news about the local wellness policy is that participation is open to the general public and the school community. And if you go to your district's website, they should have that local wellness policy listed there. You can contact the food service director or supervisor and see when the committee meetings are held. And then you can start to collaborate with the food service department to implement the changes that you want to see. And you can also learn more about what their problems are and work together to find solutions. I know Irene has done a great job of this, and she might share some of that with us later. Okay, one of the other things you can do is just provide support. So you can support initiatives and take action on legislation that supports livable wages, fair treatment, safe working conditions. That can also look like mentioning that to the school board and really promoting that to them. The school boards, the districts, the community and parents, they all have a big say, and what they say means a lot. You can also become a school nutrition advocate by educating yourself, like coming to webinars like this to see what's really going on for school nutrition programs and professionals. You can share that education with others. And if you work for a company, you can lend your experience to those schools and those school meal programs to help them out. Okay, so wrapping up here with these key takeaways is we can't really have an increase in children and families relying on school meals, increased expectations of scratch cooked meals, increased expectations of organic produce, sustainable materials and practice, nutritional standards, food prices, gas prices, supply chain issues, long-term impacts from the pandemic. Without livable wages, or with decreased wages for cafeteria workers, decreased labor force, decreased access to foods that meet USDA standards. We really need the support from the community, schools, leaders, politicians, people like you, money and investment in cafeteria staff, money and investment in school meal programs, and policy change. We need all those things to come together to support how we want school cafeterias to look. My next slide here is just a recommended read. This is one of my favorite books. So if you're interested and or you're a fellow school lunch nerd like myself, I really recommend you taking a look at Jennifer E. Gaddis's book, which explores the history and looks at some of the challenges that school cafeterias are facing today. And of course, you can use your phone to scan this QR code. It'll take you to Lunch Assist website. If you want to learn more about us, you can also follow us on social media. We try to inform and also make you all laugh. Every Monday, we try to post a meme that's relevant to school nutrition. So we hope you'll give us a follow. So thank you so much for taking the time and listening to me. I'm going to pass it over to the incredible Irene so she can share all the things that she's doing at Alisal.
Thank you, Angela. What a great introduction. And you too are a legend and my best go-to person when I need help and to solve strategies. Hello, everyone, and thank you for, thank you for joining us. My name is Irene Vargas, Director of Nutrition Services for the Alisal USD School District. And today I'll be sharing with you some of the sustainable strategies and practices our cafeteria have been able to implement. I understand that not every school or district is the same. So today I just want to share what has worked for us. And hopefully this will give you an example of ways that might work in your program. So here's my awesome central kitchen staff making some corn with cilantro and lime. It's a new recipe that we started. So first I'd like to start with the food service. I started with food services at McDonald's, where I worked for over 20 years, and 19 of that was in management. And I was a training manager as well. So I brought a lot of my expertise to this district. I started working with Alisal as a substitute and eventually became the director in 2006. I'm going on my 22nd year of working here and have been seen and been part of much growth in this district that we're all very proud of. So now that you know a little bit about me, let's talk about my district. We started operating CEP in 2014. Prior to that, we were Provision 2. We have 12 schools, a little over 60 employees. We serve a little over 7,800 students and over 20,000 meals a day. So, sorry about that. So here are some of the things that we started to do when we started to implement some school waste reduction. Of course, we followed the mandate and how we did that. We started with, at Alisal, we have created a food waste diversion program with 6 sustainable strategies. These strategies have had a lot of added benefit to the increasing staff hours, which is a plus and much needed. Some sustainable strategies at Alisal is what we started with, the traveling apple policy. When I found out about that, I was so excited because I had been asked, what are we going to do about our waste? So students can take home a whole piece of fruit or grain or a bagged vegetable to eat later. That was never heard of, right? So I thought this was a great thing. And then a share rack. We developed a share rack where you could put unopened and eaten food is diverted in the share rack in the cafeteria. So students can take it home or eat it for later. Then the milk waste bin. That was a tough one. I did not know what we were going to do about that, but we figured it out. I will talk about this further in detail here shortly. We have 2 removable strainers that separate liquid and food waste. Students empty milk into the bins themselves. It reduces milk waste, weight in the garbage bags, liquid spills, and dumpster odor. Then we have food waste composting, Mixed recycles, this is pretty standard, reusable trays and utensils. So we started simple by adding the travel apple policy to all our school meal programs, breakfast, second breakfast, lunch, snack, supper. With the share racks, we piloted 4 schools during the summer that were open. And then the following year, we added all the share racks to all the sites. From there, we started to focus on liquid waste. And this is what it started to look like. We had, this is the first type of liquid waste container we used. It was designed and input with all the staff, including custodial staff. On the next slide, you'll see a current container that that worked much better for everyone. And it kind of looked like this at first. We partnered with Salinas Valley Recyclables, and oh, they were amazing. They completed the on-site assessments, trained food service staff, students. They even donated reusable utensils. And they helped us design a liquid waste container garbage with a hose, with an actual hose, so it could be drained. Easier for the custodians. The designed liquid waste container garbage can with a hose, like I had said, for staff and students, was also help input with the Salinas Valley Recycle team. So this is a picture of what it looks like, and the vendor is Pour Away. And it went from the 1 screen to 2 screens to 1 screen. And again, it is awesome. It is a great tool and a great asset for the program. We've always had reusable trays, but in 2019, we added reusable sporks. And the kids loved it. They thought it was so special. We added it to our breakfast program, our lunch, snack, and supper. We found that using disposable, reusable trays and utensils reduced our garbage pickup from 5 days to 3 days a week, garbage volume, number of plastic bags, amount of plastic packaging, frequency of custodians replacing plastic bags, and it saves money on garbage disposal costs. Sorry. Okay, so as you know, change can be hard, and it is important to support our staff when new changes need to be implemented. Able to increase labor is what we started with with the reusable sporks. So we piloted a site, and we added an hour to the part-time staff to help wash the utensils. We already were washing trays, and we already had the staffing to do that. It takes the cost of the sporks and the condiments versus 1 hour of labor, and it equals a savings. The Energy Star commercial dishwashers, I had 9 of them donated by a company. All I had to do, and the company was Ecology Action Water Conservation Rebate Program. And all I had to do was pay for the installation. So how are we gonna get the sporks soaked in prior? So this is what we came up with. We put a little, bus pan with soap and water on a cart. And we were able to soak them before the staff went and got the dishes to start working. And it started to work. This again, increased hours. So here is who is responsible for what. And this is a lot of concerns that come up. Who's going to do what and why? It's important to point out that this program is a district program, not a department program, not a food service program, because it involves everybody and we have to follow the California laws. So our school meal program operates in partnership with our district that makes all this happen. So we provided the share rack, the timer for the milk, so we can go check it 20 minutes for students who put it in the ice bath. And these are students who decided not to drink their milk or open it. We developed green teams with our own students during meal service to maintain the stations and teaching our students, and it's ongoing. Custodians and liquid waste and milk cartons share, same as before, but less heavy. Those bags are not heavy anymore because the liquid waste is going in the proper container. School admin needs to make sure that this is up and running daily and everybody needs to know what to do. School meal program, of course, we purchased the first round of equipment. We purchased the liquid waste containers, the food waste containers, share rack, etc. And then the district can help sustain by replacing some of those items as they, break down or get old or whatever the issue may be. And Salinas Valley provided a lot of signage for the classrooms and the containers and in the eating areas. So how we rolled this out is we started with teachers' aid assistants. These are the little ones too. We got a little kind of a smaller compost for their food waste. They used the same liquid waste container. We had the green team assist them for lunch and supper. We had about 3 or 4 students. The teachers selected their green teams for the district, have lunch before their shift, and we would rotate them 15 minutes apart. Another tip is the table dismiss, not to dismiss the students at the table until they organize their tray. They can organize their wrap foods, open them up if they didn't finish them all, the food that they're going to put in the tray rack, and then the plastic wraps, if there's any or whatever's going to go in the garbage, and then all the food waste. And this works well, and it reduces time, and this is just repetition for them to start practicing. And this is how they maintain it. And this is how they learn. So there's some goals. These are the sporks that were donated by the Salinas Valley Recycle. And again, we had a huge, great response from the students. They felt special and they thought it was the coolest thing. So future goals, recess before lunch at all sites. We do have one site experimenting with that right now, and it is very successful. Reusable sporks. I don't have them on all the schools yet, but we're working on continuing the food waste diversion in the rest of the sites this year. Reusable cups, milk carton recycling, and bulk milk. Of course, you'll still have to probably have some cartons for the younger students if they cannot reach the dispensers. And you will probably still have to have lactose-free milk for those special diets because you probably won't be able to get that in the dispensers. Okay, so here are some tips and takeaways from our food waste diversion program. My top 2 tips for schools, if you want to start something, is to work in school sites at admin, because again, this is a district program. Start from the top, not just your department. And my second tip would be to create training videos with the students, which we did, and Salinas Valley helped produce all of them at no cost to the district. We found these videos to be incredibly helpful and in managing and sustaining our food waste diversion program, because those videos are made with our kids, our students, and it was very well received in the community. The next slide, stay in touch and come visit. Another way to communicate your program is get the media involved. We did a little snapshot with that with our media, the news channel, Univision came out, KON came out, and we let them know what we were doing in schools today. So with that being said, thank you. It was an honor presenting today. And if you have any questions, I'll turn this back over now to Sue, and we can answer any questions you all might have. Thank you again.
Thanks, Irene. It's really great. I would like to thank all our speakers. And I'd also like to just introduce Ben, who I bet many of you know. He's the food program coordinator at CEH, and he is also going to help with just helping bring the questions out and referring them to different speakers.
Some of them have already been answered in the chat, but we might go back to them because it might be good to hear. But one that's coming up is, can sustainable practices be a part of the job description? And I might toss that to Sally and Angela, or even Irene, if you have any thoughts. Let's see if we can unpack that.
Looks like Sally, you're gonna take this one.
Yeah, I can do that one. You can really put anything that you want to in the job description. And if you identified some things such as Irene has, using the dishwasher or helping the students sort materials or things like that, yeah, you could definitely put that in the job description.
Cool. Next question from Beverly. I'm interested if anyone has any tips on removing the use of plastic water bottles from sale at school.
I know that a lot of schools have been installing hydration stations, and sometimes they'll sell as a fundraiser for a club, a bottle, or a metal container that you can use at the hydration station, or you can just bring your own. So I've seen a lot more of those going in recent years.
Yeah, I've also seen a product too called Path Water, where they have reusable still containers, and you can even get fancy and personalize them and put like school logos and whatnot on them. But then the kids can reuse the Path water bottle. So I've seen that being used as well.
A lot of school cafeterias are also actually pretty far away from drink fill stations. So getting those installed where the students can actually get those, I find might be very helpful. This kind of leads into another question. Do any schools use milk dispensers instead of cartons? We're starting, and I might take that one because I've been living in the milk dispenser world. It seems like, yes, you can use milk dispensers. Again, it's required to offer 2 different types of milk. So you need a special dispenser that can do that if you want to do that. But you can also just have a dispenser and some of the 8-ounce cartons. There's cost savings there, especially with the supply chain issues. And like in the Bay Area, Strauss Organic Creamery has been trying to interface with schools. So we've seen some schools in Contra Costa County. Michelle Obama Elementary has recently put in a milk dispenser that they're trying out this year. The main problem is that you have to lift those 40-pound, 5-gallon milk bags into the container, but then once they're in there, that usually will cover you for the whole school day. Next question is for Irene, and it's from Amy. Were little ones ever able to separate waste on their own, or did they always need help?
Hi, Amy. Yes, once they learned how to do it, they were taught to start with their tray, organize their tray, and they had assistance. The only assistance they need is that milk dispenser, the liquid waste container. So that has resolved in trying to get something smaller that they can reach. But yes, it's doable and they are able to learn.
Irene, while we got you, can you tell us more about who organizes the green team at your school? And then maybe we can ask Lunch Assist if they have any best practices on that.
We left that up to the school. So teachers, principals would talk to the teachers. Do you have any students? They would select them and they organize the green teams. And how they did that, it could be the best student, or I'm not sure how they selected them, but they did that.
And Irene did a really good job too. She connected with the city recycling company, and they were really helpful in creating these student videos that Irene mentioned in her presentation, which I think is is great. Irene and Alisal has really been just a great prototype for what that could look like when you have community partnerships.
Yes, they were awesome. They still are. They support us 100% of what we're trying to do. And just the fact that they came out and helped start it up at one site, of course, then COVID hit. We were so excited because we piloted a site. You got input from everybody, valued that input, even from students. They thought it was fun. They're aware of it. Teachers love the idea. And it's all about letting the students save the environment. And it was very well received through the community.
Irene, we have another question from Annalisa. How often have you had to replenish the reusables that you have been lost or not returned or damaged? And is the cost significant year after year?
It's very minimal. I have not calculated it, but it is very minimal. When we started the sporks, the school site sent out memos to parents in English and Spanish. If you see a spork and they showed a picture of it in your child's backpack, please return it to the school. They went through the whole process with all the students. These belong to the school. We need to the school. We need to bring them back. Don't damage them. It just took the whole school community to make sure that they would return them and not take them out or use them to play with or whatever. Because we did experience a little bit, but then it stopped. So again, parents were very understanding about it. So year after year of trays, it's not often that we replace them. If anything, when we were increasing enrollment for a while, we were buying more. So that was a big problem.
Nice, yeah. Plastic-free restaurants will also do kind of a replacement too. If you're looking to buy reusables, they'll subsidize that cost. Another question from Beverly is there any statistics about the number of schools that have dish machines and how that has saved money? Irene, can you say how many of your schools have dish machines?
All of our schools have dish machines. Since I've been here in this district, I've only had to purchase 4. And I had just purchased some before the 9 were donated because I was going to start replacing them. So if they're taken care of, you have them serviced, maintained, they last a very long time. And I've never really had any problems, some minor ones. And the more problems you get, it's because they start to get old. Yep. So then you do eventually have to replace them, but it's not all the time.
And if I may, I'll talk a little bit about it. Irene's Alisal is a little bit of an anomaly. Most schools don't have dish machines in them. They were ripped out in the 80s around drought and the convenience issue that has been brought up by Sally. They can save schools money if you have them, but they do have some ongoing costs, not just the buying the machine and the installation. And you also have to pay the labor to wash it. And the calculators that CEH have developed, which I'd be happy to share if you reach out, shows that the costs, there will be some cost savings realized when you use a dish machine over disposables. Someone, Teresa, sorry if I said your name wrong, is wondering about rodents in the compost. In this, can anyone talk about rodents in the compost? Angela?
I think Irene might be best suited for this. Irene has a compost program. So
yeah.
Has that been an issue for you at all, Irene?
No, it has not. They pick up the food waste regularly. It's still in the bags that are made for the compost or for the food waste. They're biodegradable and they seal them up, put them in there, and that was my biggest concern. But because that food waste bin is picked up regularly by Salinas Valley, the Republic, the garbage, the vendor, we have not had an issue.
Yep.
How frequently are those picked up?
They're picked up once a week.
Once a week.
Sometimes twice, depending on the amount of waste we have.
Okay, thanks.
And there's also ways to work with the custodial staff or the maintenance people to come up with a rodent-proof container. So just like regular garbage, has to be in a sealed bin with a lid on it, that kind of thing.
Yes, and again, remember the food is being produced and discarded, and so like the rodents, it's a very similar system to throwing it to the landfill as going to the compost. It goes in a dumpster, gets picked up regularly, and like if you have rodents with one system, you might have rodents with the other system, but it's from what I've heard, it's usually not a problem. Next question from Amy. Is there any movement with hiring recycling specialists, sustainability specialists to take on these duties district-wide? Is that trending, and do you see it happening in future for public schools? Angela or Sally, has this been bubbling up for you?
I've been seeing an interest in people looking for funding for that. Especially as part of a comprehensive nutrition education program that would include those issues for the children. There hasn't been a funding source identified, but like at a nationwide or statewide level, but it certainly is something that people have a lot of interest in right now.
I've seen these positions open up in larger districts too. But that doesn't mean that the smaller districts shouldn't pursue this because it's important, and it's a good in to teaching students about sustainability issues via their own lived experience in their own school community. Have you had experience with different grades? Is there any difference between how high schools participate versus elementaries? Under grade 5 student participation. Irene, do you want to talk? I know your schools are a little bit younger, but do you want to talk on the difference between the different grades and how they participate?
They all participated just fine. In fact, the green teams are 4th, 5th, and 6th. So they're all very aware of food waste diversion because they're doing it at home as well. So they just think it's the best at work. I mean, at school, sorry, work for me, at school, because they're doing something positive for the environment. And it was very well received.
Yeah, we've been finding that high schoolers that I've interfaced with are also a little more resistant to reusables because they have an understandable design issue, especially with opener campuses. High schoolers tend to eat in different areas, not just in the cafeteria when they're allowed to. And then how do you get the reusables back to the place to wash is a question. It's not something that is, it is something that we could work on with the high schoolers, especially once they see the issues. And like they also have been trained for the 8 years in districts that are on disposables that they just need to throw stuff away after lunch. So we recommend starting with the youngers and kind of working our way up to the olders, which might be a little bit more complicated of a process.
I do want to add to that. During COVID, when we started going back to school, we started recycling again, the schools that already were in progress in doing that. So we just set up more stations and the staff went outside to get it. So we were still able to control it and it worked very well. The students are aware and they are positive about it. So we didn't get any resistance as far as having to bring it back into the cafeteria. We just set stations out there where the staff went out to get it. Didn't take long at all.
Mary is asking, is there any issues with line delays as kids use milk dispensers or sort waste or learn these new systems? Irene?
Well, our system is set up for double-sided, so that would speed it up. And also if they organize their tray, that sped it up as well. And as they got the training and it was repetitive, they're doing this at every meal service, not just lunch, not just breakfast. They got the hang of it. They learn quick and they know what to do. They know what the share rack is for. They even go up to get juice or whatever's in there that they want to eat as an addition, or you see them taking it outside. So once they learn it, it was just repetitive on it. They were very positive.
Excellent. And we're about wrapping up, but Irene, there's one more question from Annalisa. What advice would you give a nutrition director who is motivated but hesitant to try using reusables due to bandwidth concerns?
That's a very good question. I would try it. Like reusable sporks, I wasn't too sure. I was very, hesitant as well. But I said, okay, let's try it. And you don't know until you try, and you pilot things at one school at a time and try to work out all the logistics and start simple. That's what I would do. We started the share rack and the liquid waste, because the liquid waste for me was the biggest thing. How do you do that? Where do you get the containers? It wasn't until I met Salinas Valley Recycle. So if you have a company in your area, I would definitely call them, brainstorm, because they are more than willing to help. They know what schools are trying to do, but you're not going to know until you try it and start from the top. That's where I would go and get that support.
And I think on that note, we will start calling it for this lovely webinar. I just want to give a great round of applause to all of our wonderful speakers. I know Irina is going to be serving kids later today, so it's very special that we had her on and had her have time to tell us some of the amazing work going on at Alisal. So thank you so much. We'll send out a recording of this and a follow-up email. There's also a survey after you log out, so please take 10 minutes to fill that out so we can know how we can better serve everyone. Thank you all so much, and have a lovely day. Bye.
Thank you, everyone.